Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This evening's special guest is Dennis Pratt from the New Hampshire Free State Project. Take it away, Dennis. Tell us all about the Free State Project and how we can somehow spread freedom across the country.
So, hi, I'm Dennis Pratt. I've moved here about 6 years ago, 5.5, 6 years ago. And I first found out about the Free State Project actually from one of my socialist friends in the aught three, aught four, when it was just starting up. But of course, I thought that he knew nothing about libertarianism, so I could just totally disregard what he was talking about. And I finally went up to Porcfest around 2011, and I was just so shocked. I had never been around that many libertarians doing all these different libertarian things. And it was such a relief to actually be in a place where everyone was speaking libertarian and they were going from that libertarian level to doing other amazing things. So I went up there multiple times. I finally moved to New Hampshire in 2018. And I've been up here since. I actually don't like to leave New Hampshire. I'm so much in love with it. Just, I love New Hampshire, but I actually like the liberty part. Every once in a while, my wife will either force or trick me across the border, and I'll have to go through some anxiety at that. But other than that, I like being in New Hampshire. I've run Porcfest the last 5 years. This is my first year not running it. I redesigned it and doubled its size and septupled its events. Um, I also started Liberty Clubhouse here, and there's a number of things I've done here. I've been, it's for me it's like a boy in a candy shop. There's just so many liberty things going on here. And one of the things that I've been talking with is I've been, I've been talking to a lot of people and saying, hey, you ought to be thinking about moving out here. This is so cool out here that you really would enjoy yourself were you to move here. And a lot of people say, well, I can't move. I'm divorced. My spouse has my child, and I can't move for 12 years, or I'm disabled, and I feel so bad for libertarians who are not able to come out here. So I've been brainstorming how we could actually extend some of the benefits of the Free State Project to other states. And that's what I'm going to present today. Hopefully my slides will work. We'll have to see. Let's see, whiteboard, iPhone. Okay. Here we go. So can you see that?
We're seeing a
It
blank.
has said you started screen sharing, but I don't see anything yet.
Oh.
Oh, there it is. Now we see it. Yep.
All right, cool. Well, look at this. Okay, so let's see if this starts working here. So so today I'm going to be talking a little bit about building your own free state, taking the lessons that we've learned from the last 20 plus years of building a free state in New Hampshire and transporting some of those lessons to your own state. So I'll talk a little bit about the free state. I'll probably skip some of the sections. If you want me to go back over and talk about those later on, I can. You'll at least see what I'm skipping over though. So there's this libertarian dream, right? For me, it happened in 1982. And I was a democratic socialist, and I was trying to figure out what's wrong with the world and how we had wars and we had deaths and just the poor. And I just couldn't figure this out. And I finally got this idea about libertarianism, and I saw this beauty. I just saw this beautiful vision, and I thought, my God, this answers everything we've ever wanted. And all I have to do is share it with my friends, and they'll see it, and then we'll have this libertarian society. So that was 1982, and the reality is that I have done a lot of proselytizing, a lot of sharing, and it's extraordinarily hard to share. We had a talk at one of the Porcfest just recently that it was easier to turn someone from heterosexual to homosexual than it is to turn someone from authoritarian to libertarianism. And there was a big debate about that. But I think that there's something to it. I think that there are very strong characteristics that determine whether someone can actually escape the matrix or whether they cannot. And I think the vast majority of people cannot. But the cost is really, really super high for someone who doesn't understand this and thinks that the Thanksgiving dinner table is where they can convert all these people to libertarianism, and then those people will convert their Thanksgiving table, and so on and so on. But the cost is lifespans lost, and eventually, after a decade or so of smacking one's head into the wall, we start losing libertarians. They give up, and it just seems so impossible. And the question kind of comes to, is freedom at all possible? Is this something that we can do? Now, the thing is that we don't realize how many alternative strategies have actually been tried. We've had 5 decades of testing different strategies, and hundreds of thousands of libertarians have been experimenting. We just haven't been all that good about keeping track of all these experiments. And they've been experimenting in different towns and states and countries. And so there's been about, the way I count, is over 25 different strategies. And we have empirical evidence for how well those various strategies work. Now, of course, we can argue whether this implementation was good or that implementation was better. But I think that we do have good evidence, and we, being libertarians, should be looking at that evidence, and it should be saying, okay, what seems to work and what doesn't work, and start using that to our advantage. So I'm going to skip over some of the taxonomy. I grouped them here a little bit, so I will chat a little bit about them. There are a whole bunch of strategies around supplanting authoritarianism. Certainly conversion is the major thing, and almost all these strategies have some element of conversion in them. But there's also the electoral strategies. The Libertarian Party, which I believe most of you are in, is one of those electoral strategies. And the Free State Project, by the way, was actually started by someone who was despairing that the Libertarian Party would never really be successful. He made a prediction in 2001 that the Libertarian Party would stay about the same, just wouldn't have that much electoral success. And was there a better way of doing it? 20 years later, he basically was right. So so we see these various elements not really living up to the potential, and certainly not living up to the lives invested in them. There's a whole bunch of supplication strategies. Cato would be a good example, where you go to your master and you tell them that they can exact more from their slaves if only they were to give us a little bit more freedom. There's a whole bunch of fighting things, everything from our memers to Reason Magazine, Fighting in Court, Institute of Justice, and actual physical fighting, which of course we'll never talk about. There's insulation strategies. I got a Bitcoin up there, but there's other different strategies that people do to kind of insulate themselves from the worst parts of authoritarianism. And then there's denial. I certainly fell into denial. I fell into about a decades long of depression, that just this was not a possibility. But there's a whole class of alternatives called separation. And then of course there's the Ted Bundy, go out into the woods and live off the land, the straw man that the authoritarians always want to make us into. But there's also freedom circles where you find 6 people and you create a support system for when all heck hits the fan. But the part that I'm going to talk about are the concentration strategies. And libertarianism, um, uh, the idea here is there's one essential ingredient to create a libertarian society. And we don't talk enough about that essential ingredient. And people think, oh, well, what I need are votes, or I need it, and they talk about all these things, and they don't really focus on the one essential ingredient. Does anyone want to venture a guess as to what the one essential ingredient to a libertarian society is?
Is it voluntarism? Like
Voluntarism. Yeah, that would be a good one. I would like that to definitely be in there. There's something even more essential.
Lots of alcohol.
If you come to Porcfest, you'll definitely find that an element there. The one essential ingredient is libertarians. I wrote a fairly long piece. I was a top writer on libertarian ethics on a site called Quora for 4 years before I was kicked off. But I wrote almost 2,000 essays, and one of them was a really good piece on why Somalia is not a libertarian utopia. My first reason is that there are no libertarians in Somalia. There's just a whole bunch of different authoritarian tribes trying to fight over with each other who the biggest authoritarian is going to be over all of them. There's no libertarians. Libertarians are the rarest ingredient and the most essential ingredient. So the concentration strategy says, hey, libertarians are rare. They're hard to produce. They're beleaguered, surrounded, but they deserve a libertarian society. And not only do they deserve it, but they are the necessary ingredient. So why are we always trying to fight and do all these other things? Why don't we concentrate these libertarians together into a society? And then we have our libertarian society. Yes, it's not saving the whole world, but guess what? The whole world doesn't want to be saved. The whole world is happy being authoritarian. The whole world disparages us for wanting to be libertarian. So what if we just say, God bless you, world. Good for you. You do what you want to do. We're just going to go over here and do what we want to do. And it's kind of a guerrilla tactic of setting up a fortress that is defensible, but it's for us. And we see this concentration strategy in cohorts that are not libertarian. The Mormons moved to Utah. The Amish are in Pennsylvania and Ohio, Indiana, and other places. The Jews moved to Israel. But we see it also with one of the interesting things about those are that a lot of times those were families moving together, or in some cases entire communities or even towns moving together. In Chinatown, the Chinatowns that spring up that support the Chinese culture. And as a matter of fact, they have their own laws, and the police don't even go into it, right? The movie Chinatown. Those were founded by a lot of people who come in individually. And certainly the large gay migrations to urban areas like San Francisco were single individuals. And that's going to be really important to the rest of my talk, because libertarianism crops up not in a family. Usually in a family, there's no libertarians. But are there libertarians in a family? It's usually just one. And everyone's rolling their eyes at them and saying, oh, God, don't start going off, Dennis, again. But the rest of them are authoritarian, and they're happy being authoritarian. So if there is going to be a migration, it's going to be individuals. And this is a fairly unique factor, and I'll go into why that's a factor. There have been a lot of attempts at libertarian concentration, startup societies and micronations, Minerva, seasteading. This is a picture of Liberland, this area that is supposedly not owned by one or the other. It's between two rivers and stuff. Gulch, a great failure in Chile. Prospera, which is down in Honduras. Free Haven, which is kind of a seasteading idea, but a port city. There are two other concentration efforts that are currently underway, both modeled on the Free State Project. One is in Montenegro. This is a picture of the place in Montenegro that they're doing it, and the other one's in New Brunswick, Canada. It's called the Free Province Project. But we're in touch with both of these projects, and they're both kind of saying, "Oh, geez, look at the Free State Project. Look at the benefits they're doing. What if we do that?" So New Hampshire is probably the most successful concentration strategy, libertarian concentration strategy. And I would argue that on most metrics, it's probably the most successful libertarian strategy. At least that's what we've seen. We've had about 20 years of work on it. From my best guess, we are 20 years into a 50-year project. It wasn't anticipated to be a 50-year project. It's anticipated to be a lot less. But that's one of the lessons that we're going to be bringing down to the other states and why that is. But a lot of the strategy is, hey, if we can get an active group of really true believers and activists together into a small enough region where our numbers actually matter, first of all, we can challenge the authoritarians, and especially if they're sinks for the authoritarians to leave, that they can go other places. But we can change the culture such that the flotsam, the dull mob, starts floating in a libertarian sense. The flotsam will float one way or the other, right? They'll float authoritarian if there's enough authoritarians, which there almost always are. The flotsam will also float, we believe, libertarian if there are enough libertarians. And that's our bet. And so far, I think we've shown some proof that there is. We've had a lot of areas of success in the Free State, where, depending on how you count, number one or number two in guns. We don't have machine gun laws here. We even legalize brass knuckles. Of course, we have constitutional carry, et cetera, et cetera. But notably, we have nullified federal laws. We will not use state resources in order to enforce federal laws in New Hampshire. We have agorism here. We have homesteading. Some of the homesteaders are just incredible what they're doing. I'm primarily in the area of community building. The map that you see here are 30-minute windows for our various community clubhouses. We have community clubhouses, and the clubhouses are a lot of fun. The one I built is we have debates there and parties and discussions, game nights and poker nights, and it's a resource for the community, and it's especially a resource for new movers to come. When people first come, remember, a lot of these people are coming singly or just a couple, or maybe a couple with a kid. And so they come and they go, will I ever know anyone? And we have this thriving community of so many activities. If you go and look at our events calendar, we have activities every single day. We have multiple activities every single day. And, and they're all over the state. But, certainly in parenting, there's a lot of parenting groups and, libertarian parenting, the intellectual circles, homeschooling. What we've done in our state, we're in the tops in terms of these freedom education accounts, and we give up to $4,500 to families per child to do what the heck they want, right? So if you don't want to go to government school, you get $4,500 of your tax dollars back, and you can spend it where the heck you want. Now, you want to hear authoritarians scream? They scream. Guess what? They're screaming all the way down this list. We are number one in crypto in the United States. We do incredible amounts. As a matter of fact, there was a metals night tonight at my clubhouse. It's silver. We're building parallel institutions. The big area that everyone wants to talk about is politics, and they don't realize that so much of having a libertarian environment is not really the politics, but the politics is great. We control the Republican Party. We have the majority of the Republican Party, and the Republicans have the majority of the House. We don't yet have control of the Senate. As a matter of fact, the person we put into the Senate is not particularly a strong libertarian, and I'm really disappointed with him on a number of bills just this year. My bill, I've been working on one bill for 4 years. My bill squeaked by. It was a bill that really tested the Liberty Republicans because it was liberty. And people are, everyone's like, "Oh, I'm a Liberty Republican." Well, okay. How about this bill? So we squeaked that one by 176 of 173, but it died in the Senate ignobly. So we have work to do, but guess what? Every single libertarian that moves here, we get more power. We're nullifying government power. When we opened up the shell in 2020, and the week after we opened it up, the governor said that we may not have more than 6 people in a room. 2 weeks later, we had 3 New York City comedians, Robbie the Fire from Dave Smith and 2 others, at our clubhouse. We had 90 people in our clubhouse. Half of them were armed. My wife was furiously making drapes for the windows because she was afraid that some authoritarian would go by. But we just have numbers. We would go out. We have on the Seacoast region, which is on the right-hand side there, we have a dinner meetup at least once a week in different restaurants. And during COVID, we would go into these places, and all the authoritarians were downstairs, and they'd be wearing their masks and looking really scared, and all social distance. And we'd walk through and walk upstairs, and the place is run by a libertarian, and he opens up the whole upstairs for us, and we take off our masks. Everything's cool, everything's normal upstairs. And then when we go back down here, everyone's still scared. And we're living a parallel universe of those people. And of course, our taxes are incredible. So much of what we do, though, are these little micro freedoms. Late one night in the House, they passed a bill to legalize these microbreweries, and nobody thought anything this would change anything, especially the authoritarians. It was just kind of a, oh yeah, I don't care. And it just totally transformed that industry. We have now 100 different microbreweries around, and we have all these fun bars and stuff like that. But it's all like these little things that we have thousands of libertarians who are fairly active going, ooh, this is an area I want to work in. And they work furiously. So I worked 4 years on one issue, right? But as I'm working on that issue, all these other people are working on different issues. And so I'm working on this issue, working really hard. And all of a sudden I go, oh, hey, a new freedom. Ooh, a new freedom. And it's just so nice to have that type of resonance going through. So anyway, I have a number of things about the challenges of the Free State, and I'm really being open kimono here. I have a lot of slides here, so I'm gonna probably skip over those unless you guys want me to come back later to go over them. Some of them we can talk about later, especially as you go forward, because some of them are problems that we have because we bit off more than we can chew. We bit off a whole state. And so it's taken us a lot longer than I'm going to recommend to you guys to do. But some of them are things that you're going to see also. So, you may as well know about them and learn kind of where we think the solutions are, what things we've tried and what things we haven't tried.
Excuse me, Dennis. This Carson, I'm just making sure I haven't anything that you're sharing yet. It just says loading. I mean, I can see the top bar. Is that true for anyone else?
I just see loading as well.
Oh, you don't see the slides?
No, it just says loading.
That's weird.
I see the top, where the file and so forth would be at the top menu. But then
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You don't get to see my beautiful slides. All right, let's see. Let's see if this works.
Hey guys, just give me a second. I'll be right back.
All right. Do you see anything now on the screen?
No, it's more nothing now. Now it's just dark.
Just says this.
Oh, I'm so disappointed. Oh, I thought you guys got to see my cool. Yeah, we there we go. Let's see now. Hmm. Mhm.
I don't know whether that's something I can set.
Yeah, I think we just don't know how to do this. And I apologize. I was hoping to thank you Carson. I apologize so much. I had such nice lovely slides to keep you guys entertained.
I see it now.
Oh, well, you
The
see something
porcupine
now?
and everything. Yep, I'm sure that I see your screen at this point. Yep.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. Hold on. Let's see if I don't mess it up. Hold on. All right. Do you still see it?
No, it's back to that loading. So if we go back to the non, where we can see the slides sort of in the editing mode, I think that would work.
All right. Let me see now. Can you see anything now?
Yes, it's back to, I can see the slide like in the editing view.
All right. Well, I guess that's what we'll have to do.
We're accustomed to technical difficulties, so this is going well so far.
This is going apropos.
This is better than average, so that's good.
If I expand my screen, yeah, that doesn't really work, does it? All right. Okay, so we'll have to go this way, which is ugly as sin. But okay, so you see the picture of them moving in the new mover, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that we do is that, when someone comes, we all greet them and we unload their U-Haul and move them in, and they supply the beer and pizza, and usually it turns into a party. So it's just a nice warm way of welcoming folks in.
So Dennis, can we I think that if you could hold on and lay a foundation real quick, is how big of a geographic region are we talking? Because it's kind of a decentralized deal through the whole state, or is there an isolated region that's like right around where Porcfest is or something?
Yes, no, it is, and that's actually one of the things is that we picked a full state to do, and it's been very hard to do the full state. And so we are scattered all over that state. Now, of course, little New Hampshire is a lot smaller than big Montana, but we have around the same number of people.
Okay.
So you're what, 1.1 million? Is that what you are?
Yeah, roughly. Just over a million, yeah.
And we're almost 1.4 million. But I think that you dwarf us. I don't know. You're like 9 times bigger than we are.
I'm sure. Yeah, we're the county I grew up in is 5,000 square miles, and there's 56 of them.
Right.
Yeah. So we're the fourth biggest state. But that's just I wanted you to clarify that for us. So what we're seeing here with the moving is a kind of like a branch or where local Free State members are breeding some of this moving into their town, for instance.
Yeah, so we break New Hampshire up into 6, 7, 8, depending on whom you speak to, different regions. There's the seacoast right along the ocean. There's the lakes, which is up on the southern part of the mountains, but where all the lakes are. There's the North Country up in the mountains, and that's more isolated, like Montana. Then there's Pemi Valley, which is a river valley that goes down from North Country alongside the Lakes region. There's Upper Valley that goes over towards Vermont. And then underneath that is Monadnock region, which is where Keene is Free Talk Live is there. And then in between is the Merrimack Valley, and that's probably the majority of Granite Staters, as well as the majority of Free Staters are in
So
that Merrimack.
that's a new term to us too, probably, is the Granite Staters. I may have missed you talk about that, but
Yeah, Granite Staters is what we call New Hampshire people. And Granite Staters are basically there's free haters, Granite Staters, and free haters. And we actually have a number of groups that are free haters, and we would be more than happy to talk to you a little bit about it. But
okay, thanks.
The challenge of the Free State is the location. Everyone says, "Well, why did you pick New Hampshire? Why didn't you pick Montana?" And then I would not have had to move. Or you should have picked a sunny beach. Or and we actually have had a lot of conversations. There was actually a process that involved 3,000 libertarians, and there was a vote, and there were criteria that were looked at very seriously. I think that New Hampshire is actually a better choice than they even knew when they made that decision in 2002. But that's 2002. We're 2003 was when we started moving for sure. So and we're not 2024, so we're not revisiting that. We've moved probably about 12,000 libertarians to New Hampshire, but it's been over the course of a 20-year period. And churn, which I can talk to you a little bit more, we've lost about a half of those. So there's probably about 6,000 Free Staters in the state, plus another 1,000 Granite Staters who basically have said, "Hey, this is absolutely fantastic. I want to be part of this. I want to be part of the community." So let me see if there's any here.
And by lost, is it generally people they've maintained the same worldview, but then they've moved back to where they're from or elsewhere, or have they remained geographically local but disassociated with the Free State Project?
Yeah, almost none have done that. That's not true, because like Nick Sarwalk moved here, and he never really did much with the Free Staters. There were a number of episodes that were really kind of flaky, and then he dropped out entirely. He's still here, although I've heard that he's going to be leaving at some point, but he's never really been part of the community. But yeah, he would be one of the people who moved here for various reasons. And I can go over the reasons for the churn. Someone asked me that, and I went and did a bunch of research on that. But certainly, the location is an issue. The timing of the move. Of course, this had never really been done, especially with libertarians, and especially with this dispersed a population that doesn't have really any history of community. So there were just guesses, and the guesses were generally it would take about 5 years for 20,000 people to sign up to move. 20,000 was our target, so it was 1 million people. About 2%. We need about 2%. So we need about 20,000 people here. But instead of 5 years, it took 14 years to get 20,000 people to sign up. But by that time, we had people who had died and people who had moved on, or just all this type of churn. And as soon as we announced it, we had a lot of people who were what we call early movers. So they moved before the move was actually triggered. The idea was that we would have 3,000 people choose what state they did, and then from then on we would work on to get 20,000 people to sign up to move. And once we hit that 20,000, people had 5 years to move to New Hampshire. And so given how Jason was kind of thinking of it, this move should have been over around 2013, 2012, but it had never been done, and we were way, way off. We were off in terms of the amount of time to convince people just to sign and say, "Hey, I will do this," right? And we were off on the amount of time that it takes people to say, okay, I'm moving, I'm moving, I'm moving. And we didn't realize that, because of that timing, we would lose so many people for a variety of reasons. And then, the natives, the Granite Staters. There are, of course, we chose one of the criteria that we used for New Hampshire was it's already based liberty population. There's a good case to say that New Hampshire was one of the first revolutionary states. We had some of the Pine Tree Riot was a year before Lexington. They had they took the cannon from the mouth of the Portsmouth and the weapons there. So there's a lot of battles that took place and fights that took place in New Hampshire before Massachusetts. It's just that Massachusetts has more historians that they pay off to laud them. So we, our motto is live free or die. And that's considered it's considered kind of a sacred motto, that we really believe it. But there are authoritarians here. We have serious authoritarians here. We have people who've moved here that were on union pay in order to turn New Hampshire into a Massachusetts or a Connecticut and things like that.
What do you mean by union pay?
Well, unions paid them to move here and to unionize and to change the laws to be pro-union. So as we move here to free the laws, so do other populations move here to authoritarianize the law. So we have right now 3 different groups that are specifically against us. As a matter of fact, one of them came out a few months ago with a list of, I think it was 500 extremists. I'm on the list, by the way. There's a lot of libertarians here in the Free State Project who are really upset that they're not on the list. But they published a list. Here are the extremists that you have to worry about, and the extremists are libertarians who are trying to beat back the state, which is not what they want. But we have a lot of wins there too, where a lot of the authoritarians who were here and fighting the hardest go, these people are just, they look at us and they go, they keep on coming, they keep on coming. It's so much easier in Vermont, so much easier in Maine. It's so much, we have New York is number 50 in the 50 states, freedom in the 50 states. We're number 1, freedom in the 50 states. It's a 3-hour drive to go from number 1 to number 50. So why are you here? Why are you at the place where all the libertarians are moving to? So we're actually seeing authoritarians throw up their hands and discuss and talk about how we're destroying democracy itself, and leaving. So we're very excited about that. But as we move libertarians in, and the old guard is still there, we see housing prices increase. We don't really have control of a lot of towns. And that's actually one of the things that I'm going to be suggesting that you do. So we have people on zoning boards and people on planning committees, and we have people who are chairs of their local political groups and things like that. But we don't have the concentration that we'd like to have inside of specific towns. So we've done things where we've taken, we don't have sales tax, we don't have income tax, we don't have we're getting rid of our corporate tax. One of the big taxes, though, is property tax. And the majority of the property tax, about 65%, are for school budgets, the government school budgets. Now, those government school budgets are, as you probably know, probably same thing in Montana, are it's basically off to cronies and to the unions, and it costs so much. So we had one town whose head of the selectmen and who's head of the school board were both Free Staters. And the guy who was the head of selectmen at one town meeting, he said, "Hey, I know that the school board has said increase this by 3% or 4%, and that's what they do all the time. But if you look at it, we would pay $9,000 to send our kids to the most expensive private school. We are now paying $20,000 to send them to the government school. Why are we paying so much more? Let's say that it just costs more to send it to the government school. So let's add $1,000. And so let's budget the school at the highest private price plus $1,000. So the people actually kind of like that, and they voted for it. $10,000 per student, and all the headlines were, the schools slashed and the Free Staters. Oh my God! And we had millions of dollars of union money coming in against that. This is just one small town. Millions of dollars coming in. There were signs all over about the Free Staters and how the Free Staters are so horrible and stuff like that. They broke all these different rules, and there was just all these shenanigans, and they defeated the bill. We actually tried a parliamentary thing of not having a quorum, so we told all of our people to stay home. So it was an outsized vote against. I think we only had 11 people who showed up against our wishes. And so the Free Staters are defeated. They're on the retreat. Well, guess what? Now all these other towns are going, okay, tell me again what your thinking was. And so the people who were like organized this are now going to other towns and explaining, look, you don't have to pay this really super high fee. Especially with our education, our student freedom accounts.
So
anyway.
Dennis, has any town in New Hampshire been successful in instituting this idea?
No. I mean, this just happened last year, where we.
I see.
And of course, the impact on the property taxes would have been tremendous. Right. And if you hear the Granite Staters complain, what they complain about the most, especially old folks, and singles and people, it's how high the property taxes are. Now
that's
right?
Why I asked, because right now that's Montana's biggest tax issue is right. For some of us, our property taxes have doubled. I mean, more than doubled. And so for a lot of people, like you're speaking about, for the retired folks, it's really hitting them hard.
Yep.
And they keep trying to push these new school levies to to bridge that gap. Real quick, I had Michael Winters from Texas. He's on the Discord server for the Libertarian Party, and he couldn't make the call, but he wanted me to ask you if you think it's worth replacing replicating the Free State Project elsewhere in the US, or do you think the only best chance of success is in New Hampshire?
Yeah, so let me get to that. I'll skip over the challenges. We have a number of challenges. I do have some slides about the churn, about what has happened over 20 years, and how the early movers, they had the hardest job, right? The first movers, it's like they're just living in the authoritarian 49. That's what I call you guys. But the movers now, they come in and there's all this infrastructure that's been built. There's all these groups. We have over 100 different groups. If you took the Libertarian Party in Montana and split it up into 100 different groups and populated each of those to be as large, that's kind of what we have. And so you can kind of find your own niche. But the early people, they had tough times. So anyway, I talk about the churn. I'm going to skip over those. The future of the Free State. So I think we have 30 more years. We're always looking for more libertarians. Every libertarian that comes here adds liberty. It makes it easier for everything else to go. And usually they're opening up even new areas of liberty that we just weren't anticipating. We have ideas about how to stop authoritarians moving into state. We've already seen those come to fruition. If you notice, a lot of the press is very negative to New Hampshire. And we'd actually like that. We don't want authoritarians to think that New Hampshire is the place to move to. You know, if you're authoritarian, you should not be moving to the libertarian homeland. You just shouldn't. So we actually are seeing now authoritarians kind of going, oh, geez, I'm going to move to this place or that place. We have I do a lot of stuff of the with what I call the socialist state project of turning Vermont into a socialist state. Now people go, well, that's right next to you. How can you do that? I need a sink. I need a place to send New Hampshire socialists or Boston socialists when they want to go up north. Vermont's right next to us. They can move right next door. It's just the same, you know. So you head north. You bang a right if you're libertarian. You bang a left if you're if you're a socialist, and you can have your pick. But don't have socialists go to New Hampshire. And if you're libertarian, God forbid that you go to Vermont. So we're doing things like that. Another thing that we have is we have a program where we will actually pay authoritarians to leave the state. And so we help them sell their house. We help them pack up. We pay for their move, and we'll pay their first month's rent in the state of their choice, authoritarian state of their choice. So we're always looking for people to do that.
Unfortunately, that's what's happening in Montana. We're having lots of people move to Montana. They're the authoritarians.
Right.
Yeah, both Bozeman and Missoula are becoming terribly, terribly blue.
Well, I don't know if you guys saw, but per capita, we are number 4 in the country right now for net migration in.
Yeah.
Relative to our current population.
Yes, relative to our current population, correct. Per capita.
So this is
Dennis,
I do have Democrats.
Well, a lot of them, but I mean, I have interacted with a lot of incredibly based people, you know, escaping the COVID stuff. So there is some cream in that churn. But a couple things I'd want you to expound on, though, that you've talked about a couple times is one's the school choice. So that's like state legislation you guys have passed for people. It's basically like a not a voucher, but I guess it would be a voucher system.
Well, it's not a voucher because what we're trying to do is avoid the state getting involved in where this can be spent, right? Right. Mm-hmm. As soon as you do that, guess who gets on those committees? It's all the cronies, it's all the bureaucrats, and they have control of that. We saw that in Massachusetts. I had an organization called Parents Decide, and it was trying to give freedom to parents on their school choice. And sure enough, you know, everything gets captured. So what they're trying to do now is this hard dance around getting money back to the parents' hands, but then the parents being able to pick and choose where they choose. And of course, authoritarians are really upset. You can use it for religious schools. You can use it for this type of book. They were all upset because there was a course that some of the homeschoolers took that was on lock picking. And I'm going, it's a great course. What are you talking about? But
so you're saying that it's the money's completely fungible.
Right.
Homeschoolers can use it. I mean, the dad can go gamble it, essentially.
Yeah, well, we're not at that point, but yeah, that's where eventually I would like to be, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where we are now is further along than anyone else. But you know, like I said, we're 20 years into 50.
Right, but I was just kind of wondering that there are some stipulations as far as what the refundable credit or however the money gets back to the family. There are some restrictions on that.
Yeah, there are some restrictions, and I'm not too sure how that's handled. I know it's not handled by the state, though. It's handled by private companies.
Okay.
So, but yeah,
one other thing I'd like.
That's obviously a place where the cronies can come in and capture, right? We're basically moving it one step away from the state. I'm not comfortable that that's far enough away. Eventually, it has to go down to the parent, in my view. But
another thing I'd like you to expound on is, and I'm drawing a blank on his name. He ran for US Senate and did the war is gay videos and so forth. So my question corresponding to that is, of course, I mean, you're talking to the Montana Libertarian Party, and I'm, from what I know about the Free State Project, which is a fair amount. I mean, what you guys are doing is great. And I met Carla Grakey, or however you say it, last year at Freedom Fest. But I know you guys, you have the Republican Party and one of the two houses of the state legislature, so the House and not the Senate. What interaction does the Free State Project have with the Libertarian Party, and how does that play into this larger, cultural thing?
Yeah. So the Free State Project, narrowly defined, is 6 people, not democratically elected, self-selected, and then they choose their co-directors on the board. Their job is really 3 things: advertise that New Hampshire is the place where we are gathering libertarians. Okay, so that's their job. That's their primary job, is doing that. And they run, in order to support that, they run 2 festivals a year. One is the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance in March, and the other one is the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which is what I ran for them for 5 years. And then that's it. Now, there's the Free State Movement. Once you get here, you don't report to the Free State Project. There, it's 5 guys. So it's a bottom up decentralized network of all these different organizations. Like I said, there's 100 different organizations. And one of the things that in the slides I skipped is that, sometimes it's hard to find which group you belong to. And a lot of people go, oh, the Free State Project is this. And I'm going, no, it's all these things. But if you think it should just be one thing, and you go and you don't really fit into there, you might be going, oh man, I don't fit in anywhere, which is absolutely insane. The first 3 groups I tried to join, I didn't fit in. And the third one I excelled in, right? The third one I revolutionized. So it's a matter of fitting, libertarians who tend to be a little bit differently shaped into these different groups, and the groups are just varied. And then it's very easy to create groups. We're a separatist movement, and so a lot of times when there's conflict, we just fork. We just split apart. Now, the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, which is what you're talking about, is one of those 100+ groups. That's all it is. It's just one. And it is where the most rabid. Now, I'm a lifelong member of LPNH. I love what they do. I'm their chief apologist. So when they get into trouble, I go and I say, here's how this relates to libertarian ethics. So every time that somebody comes down hard on us, I'm the one who has to step up and explain what it is that is the thinking. Because of course, to the authoritarian 49, remember, the authoritarian 49 aren't playing our game. They're not doing concentration. So a lot of what they have to do is they have to get along with the authoritarian horde that surrounds them. So they're very scared about what the authoritarian horde thinks for a number of reasons. 1, the authoritarian horde could hurt them. And 2, they're trying to turn the authoritarian horde into libertarians. Okay? We're neither. We're neither of those things. We're neither scared, nor are we trying to turn the authoritarian horde into us. We think the authoritarians are fine being authoritarians. We want them to be authoritarians. We just want to be libertarians. And we want to be around other libertarians. So it's a really different way of viewing the world. And it's very hard for people outside the state to understand. So a lot of what you see with LPNH is, you could be looking at any of the 100 or so other groups and you go, oh, that's odd. That's odd. That's odd. But yeah, LPNH is an odd group because it's doing a particular function. Now, libertarians cannot get into office in New Hampshire. I mean, you might be able to really force it if you really wanted to waste resources. But if somebody comes to me and they're a good libertarian, a really good libertarian, but they're presentable and they're articulate and they want to get into that sewer and actually start passing laws, I can get them in. They'll go in as a Liberty Republican or a Liberty Democrat. We would love to have them in as a Liberty Democrat. As a matter of fact, the first free stater into the House was a Liberty Democrat. But it's harder to get in as a Liberty Democrat. You go in as on a Republican ticket, and you already have 40% of the vote.
So would you say New Hampshire is like Montana in that it leans more red then?
No, I would say that New Hampshire is pretty much a purple state.
Oh,
And if it weren't for the Free State Project, it would probably be melding over into the Democratic sphere, just because they have pressure on all sides from progressive authoritarian states.
And are you guys getting more of your free staters to run for local office, kind of doing the whole bottom up strategy, city council, school board, etc.?
Yeah, well, we've actually been talking about that, and that's actually one of the things that led me to what I'm going to be recommending for you guys, because we are dispersed still relative to towns. And so we don't have control of a full town, their whole zoning board, their school board, their planning commission, the selectmen, the sheriff's office, the police department. We don't do that right at this point. And the one question is, well, why not? And so let me go ahead and I'm going to move. I'm going to skip over here. Stop that. Let me see if I can do this. Okay. So this is what I'm going to be recommending to you guys. You cannot do a second free state. Okay. The reason why you can't do a second free state, there's a number of things. What's the most important thing that you need to do a free society? Libertarians. We do not have enough libertarians. We don't even have enough libertarians to handle little teeny tiny little New Hampshire yet. And as a matter of fact, the best guesses about how many it would take, how long it would take, the number of libertarians there, because it's not just libertarians, it's libertarians who are serious enough that they go, yeah, I'm not just going to sit around and talk about this. I'm not just going to sit around and LARP for the rest of my life or bitch about it. I want to actually build this thing. And yeah, I'm willing to get off my ass and move somewhere and go with some other people. And yeah, when I get there, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and I'm going to do what's needed to be done to get this thing done, because it matters to me that much. So it's not just libertarians. It is kind of that very cutting edge of libertarian. So we're looking at that at the most serious people all around the world. We have people coming from all over the world to New Hampshire, not just from the 50 states. But okay, so what happens to the next level? The people who say, hey, I'm not leaving my state, but is there something I can do within the state? And so what I'm going to be suggesting to you guys is that you have to pick the appropriate size region to consolidate in. But you can do a similar thing, a reflection of this. You just can't do it in the full state because there's not enough libertarians to do it in. I tweeted the other day that it is hubris to assume that 2% of the population can control 100% of the region. But it's not hubris to say 2% of the population can control 2% of the region. And it's actually easier if 2% of the population is controlling 0.5% of the region. We are a small minority. So I think that we take a little bit of ego hit here and get a little bit real with who we are and where we are and how hard it is to convert people. But if we do this, you could elect libertarians to all levels of government, from the mayor all the way down to the dog catcher. You can pass legislation. You can build parallel institutions. You can create social networks within this smaller region. You can nullify laws that are from the larger areas, from county levels and state and federal levels. We do a lot of nullification. We actually have a nullification caucus in the House trying to decide which laws we're going to nullify and which we aren't. But that's at the state level, right? So we're worried about federal laws that we're doing it. As a town, you'd have to worry about county, state, and federal. But there's still things that you can do, and that will be a pick and choose them type of thing. And as a matter of fact, if I'm successful on this, and we have 49 small regions throughout the entire US that are free, you guys are going to be passing notes back and forth about how you're doing this and how you're doing that. And, oh, this is what we're doing here. So you're going to have a lot of support. You become a center for liberty in your state. So you're kind of the draw. You serve as a model in a laboratory. Now, a lot of people are, they get so greedy. They go, well, yeah, we get this one town, and then, we'll do these other 3 towns, and then and I go, oh my God. And one of the things I'll do is I'll say, okay, I want you to count to 2 with me, but do it very slowly. So if you would, Melissa, would you count to 2 for me very slowly?
1,000.
Stop. So what did you have to hit before you went to 2?
Unmute.
1.
Right.
And people keep on forgetting this. They just like skip over 1. We don't have 1 yet. So please don't forget 1. 1 is the most important thing. People are going, well, New Hampshire should be looking at taking over Vermont and Maine, and why not New York and Canada? Somebody actually said, we're doing New Hampshire. Oh my God, I'll be dead by the time we have New Hampshire. That's how big a project this is. I'm going to suggest to you a much smaller project, but I'll be dead by the time we do New Hampshire. So, do 1 first. Anyway, and of course, you'll be a sanctuary for liberty lovers. The benefit, I think, for the New Hampshire is that a lot of people balk at moving to New Hampshire because they move without friends and family and that type of thing. It's easier to move as part of a social unit. Now, we've done a lot of things in New Hampshire such that when you come here, you become instantly part of a social unit. But they don't believe that. So I think that these are kind of great staging areas where people can kind of go and they go, oh my God, this is so much fun. I'm having such a good time. And, we 3 are going to move to New Hampshire because we want to do even bigger things. And, so you can kind of stage this up, okay, I'm happy with the town. I'm going to stage up to now the state.
Dennis, what's been your biggest method of marketing to libertarians out in the other 49 and even outside of our own country? Like, how are you getting the message out to them?
Yeah, well, and that's supposed to be the job of the Free State Project, not the 5, 6, 7 people who work together and do that. And if you notice, where do you hear most about the Free State Project, right? You hear most about it from LP&H. They've become kind of a center. Now they're looking for a particular type of libertarian, but also Free Talk Live has become a center. I'm hoping that this will become a center. So what we're looking at is kind of decentralizing the centers. The Free State Project has always gone for more the intellectual nerdy types. So if you think of the Free State Project as really kind of appealing to Reason and Cato, when I took over Porcfest, that was kind of their target segment. And the thing, one of the reasons why I exploded Porcfest and made it so successful was I said, you guys are targeting the wrong segments. So I went after people who were secessionists. I went after people who were in freedom circles. I went after people who were anarcho-capitalists. I went after the hardest people out there, the people who were on the very edge of liberty, the people who said, yeah, I really care about liberty. Because what I was looking for is I was looking for people who are serious enough that they will actually pick up and go. It's a rare person. It's a rare person to become libertarian.
What medium did you use to find those hardcore people? And well, I'm asking because I'm really curious about how to find the ones in Montana.
Right. So there's a number of different things. So for example, Free State Project used to advertise in Reason magazine. and advertising on Cato, and then they would do, they looked at a lot of the mainstream media to try to get some messages out, and and how effective it was, I don't know. And it's interesting now that they're kind of shifting over. The person that Carson was talking about, Jeremy Kaufman, he used to be on the board of the Free State Project. He's no longer on the board because they just had a disagreement over messaging. Whom do you target and how do you target it? Right? That was really the conflict there. And they just didn't feel comfortable with that targeting. So, okay, great. So now we really ought to have a fork there, right? Where we have the Free State Project doing targeting a particular message to a particular segment using particular media, and LP&H and Kaufman targeting to a particular segment using a particular message and a particular media. Free Talk Live is another center. We have 2, 3, 4 people who are very heavy duty proselytizers on various specific media. And so they bring in a lot of people. I certainly try to do my share. This will be my attempt. This will be my attempt to not only advertise what it is, this concentration strategy, and how powerful this idea is. If you think about it, it's an obvious idea, right? In order to have a liberty society, what you need are libertarians. You don't have libertarians where they're spread out. You have to accumulate them, consolidate them, and now all of a sudden you have enough to have a liberty society. It shouldn't be so surprising, and yet it is. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have Free Talk Live on Spotify, and I don't know how. It's one of those where I keep following them and I don't listen to enough, but I know they're really based, and I don't remember how I did come across that. Could you expound on who that is?
Yeah, so those are Free Staters. They live in the Keene area. They actually do not coordinate that much with the Free State Project. Remember, these are groups, right? There's a Free Talk Live group, and then there's a Free State Project group, and then there's the LP&H group, and there's all these different groups. Hundreds of groups. People keep on thinking that this is one thing. This is a massive decentralized movement.
Well, if you had to stereotype or niche them in out of this 100 people or whatever, what would you use in normal adjectives? I mean, so you got the Free State Project, and it's broke up into kind of cultural subgroups, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I personally am a big fan of New Hampshire, LP&H. I think they're awesome.
I would say that I mean, these are caricatures, and of course they don't agree with all the people. But the Free State Project people would be trying to appeal to more of the intellectual types, the kind of the nerds, I hate to call them, but the regime libertarians,
like Beltway.
Beltway, yep.
Oh.
Beltway with a taste of, with a nod towards wokeism and that type of thing. The Free Talk Live would be kind of the old hippie libertarian side. You might call them left, although I think that would be a right thing to call them. But they tend to be heavy activists. So, the Keene people are basically the most likely to be arrested. They were the ones who did the Robin Hood for the parking meters. So they would walk in front of the meter maid and put quarters in as she was about to give a ticket. And
I heard about this. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
that's your Free Talk Live types.
That's the Free Talk Live types, right? And they did a lot of work early on taping. Now there's a lot of people who did taping, but a lot of the reason that you can actually tape police stops is because of New Hampshire. Carla Garricky had the seminal case on taping that a lot of states now follow. She was arrested and took it up to an appellate court here and won. And it wasn't taken further because they just kind of gave up. So the reason why you can, but Cop Block started here. This is where it all started. And so the people who were running around filming cops before it was allowed to film cops and getting arrested for it were free staters. And a lot of those people were down in the Keene area. The LPNH people tend to be more conservative, personally conservative. They tend to be looking at more people who are kind of more Hoppian. Yeah, they're all pretty darn serious. One of the things that we're seeing, and I didn't go through the various things that we're seeing, but one of the things that we're seeing is, you know, in the authoritarian 49, you come across a libertarian and you're like, oh, can't believe it. It's a libertarian. And you're so excited and you hug it out and you go, you like Milton Friedman? I like Milton Friedman. You like Murray Rothbard? Like Murray Rothbard too. And you know, you go through this like this, oh my God, I'm so relieved. Well, here, libertarians are kind of dime a dozen. So we actually see a lot more break up into smaller groups. And so we have groups that are very professional, family oriented. You know, there's a group across the street that run across the river. And actually, I moved here because they were the only community clubhouse in this area. And I moved here, and they're 2-mile walk, half, 3/4 mile swim. To get to their place. And I go, okay, great. This is fantastic. Trouble was that I'm old and my kids are out and they are looking for young, professional, married, with you know, kids. They do a lot of homeschooling. And they're very closed. They're a very closed community. Now they're great people. They do a lot of stuff. They don't necessarily do it with other people. They don't particularly like the Keens people, right? The Keens think that those guys all have a broomstick stuck up their ass.
So Dennis, another while we have you, I'd like you to, I don't think anyone on this call has been to Porcfest, although we have friends within the party in Montana that have gone.
Played it big a couple of years ago. I loved
it.
Yeah,
Roger Roots was out there, and right, the Montana
people
were out there. I think they had goats or whatever they're selling to people, and and that's great. And so, but I'd like from your vantage point. So I've had, you know, Roger's kind of explained it to me, and I choose to go to Freedom Fest. You know, I kind of have a choice to go to one or the other, but I'd like you to kind of broad brush that whole experience for us.
Yeah. So the idea behind Porcfest, Porcfest 0. So we're nerds. So we start accounting with 0. Porcfest 0 was actually called Escape to New Hampshire. And it invited, remember I said that there were 3,000 people who were going to vote on what state? And the people in New Hampshire had a big party up in the mountains and invited the people who were going to vote, come and experience New Hampshire. That was Porcfest 0. And we're on Porcfest 21 now. So the idea though was to simulate a Liberty Village. And so what Porcfest is and definitely the way that I redesigned it. We had lost a lot of it. You know, a lot of people like to think of it as a conference, and you know, it's a conference, but kind of fun conference. And for me, it's always was that, you know, that simulation of a Liberty Village. So I went back and I redesigned it around that idea. And you asked about how we advertise. That was a major way that I advertised what we're doing. I created mini festivals within Porcfest for all these different groups that I considered to be hot Liberty groups. And the idea was, well, you come to this gigantic festival, but your own group can have its own mini festival within this hub. So what you had was actually this last year we had 120 different hubs. And that's how I got to over 1,000 events, right? So each hub is doing events. Now, you know, there's also the big stage and all that type of stuff, but I even opened that up. And I told the hubs, you know, if you bring me someone who's so big that you can't have them on your site, I'll put them in one of the larger venues. So I totally opened it up, decentralized it, and took my hand off of the weights. Now that that led to RFK being here. That led to a lot of controversial things, but I personally was just happy that people were excited to bring people in.
What's the attendance that you get at Porcfest?
Yeah, so before I took it over, we were usually, somewhere around 1,000 to 1,200. And then after when I went to this kind of festivals within festivals, the highest that we had ever had was supposedly 1,500. And I went to this totally radical redesign, and people did not like it because I was really very serious about it. That's my area of research, is designing new products. And so I changed the messaging. I changed how we were organizing the entire field. I created this thing called the Silk Road, which is a road that wends its way through the campground to facilitate people going to different hubs. And what happened was I was pretty much on my way out by February, but then my February numbers came in and they were May numbers. So, and we passed the largest ever in, I think, April. And people were going, wait a minute, how many people can we actually have at Porcfest? So that first year we capped it at 2,500. And we had some difficulties. The next year we hit, I think, 28. And then last year we reduced it again just because of capacity down to about 20. I think we were at 2,400 people. But
so it's always at the same
it's a full week. It's a full
campground, though, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's more than a full week, isn't it? Isn't it 2 weekends?
Well, I get there the Saturday before, and people have been starting to do events on Sunday and Monday, but nominally it starts on Tuesday and runs through Saturday nights. Although I know this year we already have it looks like a pretty full schedule on Monday. So, but yeah, and but anyway, so that's kind of Porcfest. It's a simulation of what it is that we wanted to build. But one of the reasons why I was happy to leave Porcfest and move over into the regular New Hampshire is we have so much of that happening for real inside of New Hampshire. So New Hampshire, the idea is that we want Porcfest 365, right? We want Porcfest all the time in New Hampshire. So the simulation is becoming less and less important as the reality is moving towards it. Now, are we there yet? No, we're not there. But like I said, you go to our fsp.org calendar and look at the events. Every single day there are events. I recommend people, people mostly think, oh, I'm going to go to Porcfest and I'll get a sense of what's happening. I actually recommend that people come for what I call a porcupine vacation. A pork vacation. You stay at my inn for a week. I'll give you a half price off. And then every single day you head in a different direction and you go and meet different porcupines in different regions. And you find out, you meet porcupines in your area of interest and find out what they're doing. And so I think that that's a better way of understanding what it is that we're doing, because now you're seeing it for real. And that calendar only has the public events. For every public event, there may be 10 or 12 private events going on as well. So, once you start making connections, you can then go into some of those private connections and see actual groups. Remember, there's all these groups, actual groups doing actual things. Anyway,
I'd like to make sure that we get all those links from you, Dennis, so we can make sure we're going to publish this on YouTube. So any visitors can access this information, see your calendar events, see your inn, get a link to Porcfest. I don't know, maybe you should start a Porcfest here in Montana.
Well, that might be one of the things that you want to do is actually create a little mini festival for libertarians in the area that you want to go. So let me talk to you a little bit about how to create your free town. So this is my current guess as to what you might do. Okay. And you being a state that actually wants to get some of the benefits of consolidation. Okay. So, it's going to only appeal. Remember, it appeals a very small number. But anyway, so you ID interested libertarians, you pick a town, and I'll tell you the criteria and the numbers that you're looking at. You calculate the numbers and timing, and then you start collecting signatures. Okay. And as you're collecting signatures, the early movers are going to move to that town. There's a lot of benefits to moving early. You know, the housing prices are cheaper and you get to actually the lay of the land, but the work is a little bit harder because you don't have that resonance that you're going to be getting very soon. Then as you reach the target number that you need for that town, right? You trigger the move. So you have that move. You go, okay, we got enough people to trigger the move. And then you start moving. And you set a deadline for how much time that move is. And I have some suggestions for what that deadline should look like. And all this time, you're contributing to the town, you're running for positions, you're getting to know people. And your goal is to actually have every position from dog catcher up to mayor, right? You're passing liberty bills, you're building parallel institutions, and you're nullifying the things that you can nullify. And of course, you're a model for the overall town. I'm a nerd. I'm an MIT nerd. So let's get to some numbers here. Now, unfortunately, you guys are so small. I didn't actually anticipate this. I was talking to some countries up until now, but what we're really looking at is the number of libertarians who are probably possible movers. You know, so they're serious enough that they may eventually move, is about 1/10,000th of your state population. If your state has the average population for the US. Okay. So if you have a state that's 10 million, you have about 1,000 possible movers. You guys are 1 million. So that means you have maybe about 100 possible movers, which is a very few number. Right? These are the people whom you can really count on to actually pick up and move, you know, dislocate their life and move to a place. Now what you need is about 5% of that. And so if you're at 100 people, you know, 5% is only 5 libertarians. Unfortunately, you know, a lot of what we count on is the flotsam, is the dull masses. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get enough people in there who are libertarian to push the flotsam in a particular direction. However, if you're talking about a very small town, a teeny tiny little town, you're going to need more people. So I'm going to go ahead and say that you probably are looking at 1% of that. So you're looking at least 10 libertarians, you know, independent libertarians who are saying, yeah, I don't care where it is in Montana. We will go and choose whatever town it is, and I will move there to create a liberty town, and I'm willing to get there and roll up my sleeves and build it for real. All right, so that type of gutsy person. So the town size, you multiply it by 50. What you're really talking about here is a town around 250 or so. I know that you have some small towns. As a matter of fact, I went in and looked at some of the towns that are in that general range. You know, you have Twin Bridges, Dudden, Nashua. You know, I don't know what these towns are like, but my guess is that you can start looking for towns that are in that 2,500, 300 range, and start making some decisions about what it is, which of these towns might be targets. And what you really want to do is you want to move to a town around 250. You have to take one decimal off because you guys are so small. About around 250, and you want to move 10 movers. You have to double that. Okay. To select the town, you need about 20% of the movers that you're going to be move. I would suggest that you you know, because you really are talking about such a small number, I would actually go and you know, be looking at somewhere around 4 people 4 different families to make the decision about what town it is. Remember, you only need 10 to be moving there.
Let me interrupt you. By 4 people, you mean 4 heads of household, right?
4 heads of households. Yeah. 4 heads of
All right.
households. Yep.
And it's
then,
possibly like a 2 for if it's a spouse is on board.
Right,
too.
right. I mean, now, the idea here was that if you can get 2% of the population in a town, you know, and you have the flotsam, you have enough flotsam, you can actually, and they're activists, you can actually make some waves. Because you guys are really talking about such a small area, you need about 4% because it's just less flotsam. But 4% of a town, if you can get that, you can actually be moving everyone in the right direction. And I'll go over some of the other criteria for the town. Now it's going to be a lot easier for you guys, right? we thought it would take us 5 + 5, right? I'm suggesting that it'll take you 3 + 3, 3 to get the 10 people to say to commit, and 3 to move once there's commit. I would actually hope that you could do faster than that, because the faster you do that, you can actually kind of build from there. Because once you get the town moving, you know, you have this like kind of momentum. You have the inertia, kind of like New Hampshire does. You know, everyone talks about New Hampshire. They go, "Oh my God, do you know what those crazy libertarians did?" And then people all around the nation and all around the world go, "Wait, crazy libertarians are doing something? They're actually accomplishing." Oh yeah. Do you know that they tried to get rid of the ski slope that was run by the government and turn it into a private ski slope, and people turned out and really were outraged, and you know, and people want to kind of hear about that story, and they go, "Oh wow, that's interesting." And then we just say, "Hey, yeah, we don't have enough people to accomplish something like that, but we're getting them, and you could be part of that." So it's kind of one of these things that once you get it going, once you get that inertia going, it builds on itself. But the dynamics are that there's early movers. You will have some churn. I can talk to you a little about what a little bit about what the churn will be that you can expect.
I've heard you use that. You haven't really defined what that term is, churn.
Yeah, that's more of a it's like a cable company. I'm sorry, it's a cable company term, but it's somebody buys the product and then they discontinue service, right? So the Free Staters came and left, right? So of 20 years we had churn. I don't know if you saw it, but I had 3 pages of different ways that people left the Free State Project. And I can go back and go through those. But my guess is that those are slides that are more interest if you guys are interested in really doing this and you start getting enough people, because then I can tell you the types of challenges that you're going to have, because we've already seen them, right? We've had the experiences now of 20 years. So you don't have to start from scratch. But throughout this period of time, you keep on recruiting, even though you have your 10 people to take on the 2,500 town. You keep recruiting, because you're going to be losing some of those people. Which town? You want a town that's already kind of liberty accepting. You know, we came down to Alaska, Wyoming, and New Hampshire because they all had kind of this liberty mentality. The power is accessible. So if you have a town that's run by a single family, because you're looking at small towns, you may want to skip that town. But you know, in New Hampshire, we have House members serve 3,600, 3,200 people, and that's a very low number. And you can actually go out there and meet a lot of those people. And, you know, if you're already starting with 30, 40%, just because I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat, okay. And then you go out and meet them and you're at all a halfway decent human being. Remember, the people we're doing this with are the people who are, you know, your best politicians, right? You really want the good people there to actually be and take these positions. So, so if these positions are accessible, that's gigantic, because you want to take those positions all the way from dog catcher to mayor, police, sheriff, whatever you need to take. The location
again, I do want to ask one more thing. You say about isn't New Hampshire unique in that they have like 1,000 legislators or something?
Yeah, we have our house is 400. So for the state, remember, you're not taking a state. I'm talking about accessible for the town.
Okay, cool. But you did bring up, that one legislator. So I just wanted to
Right.
ask
So
about that. I did know that you guys, it was unique there.
Yes. We have the largest legislature for per capita, I think, in the free world or something like that. It's some ridiculous thing. And as a matter of fact, I would argue that it needs to be even larger. But yeah, it's when we go to our parties, we have legislators all over the place. It's hard. It would be hard to throw a basketball without hitting a legislator. So I would hope that there's an analog for you in the town. When you have your gatherings, you can't throw a basketball without hitting a town official. The housing stock, we've actually hit barriers with housing stock. A lot of that is because of the authoritarians and their zoning, keeping the housing stock artificially low. And we haven't done the capture of a town. And so, my guess is there are some people who are thinking about doing something like this within New Hampshire, just so that they can capture the planning, zoning, school, sheriff, police, and actually have one town that's truly a liberty town. And a place that is open to immigrants. Of the states that we were looking at, only New Hampshire said, please come. So we actually had the governor invite us to New Hampshire. And then you need some place that will have jobs and businesses, and at least has a good room for business, because you can bring in some businesses too, and that would be a good way of kind of expanding it, especially if you're bringing in Liberty businesses. So anyway, this list is going to be expanded as different towns, as different states actually do this. There's a couple of don't do's here. And I'm going to skip that. My last slide of the presentation is come and visit. At least you can come and visit Porcfest. It's kind of easy. There's all these people who are in close proximity that you can talk to. But I would actually suggest one of these porcupine vacations. You come to the Independence Inn. DM me if you're thinking about coming.
It's the Independence Inn. That's what you own.
Yeah. But you DM me, Dennis Pratt. I'm on Twitter. I'm
Dennis,
Dennis Pratt.
make sure you get all those links for us, because I do want to add it to the YouTube video for people that come in and watch this after the fact. Because I know we have a lot of folks that couldn't make it tonight that intend on watching it later.
Sure. But what you really want to do is you want to make connections, right? You want to see what we're doing here and how we're doing it. And especially in your areas. I don't know what your area is. Maybe your area is homesteading, or maybe your area is guns, or maybe your area is community like mine. Maybe your area is politics. So we have people who've been doing this for so long, and you can talk to them and pick their brains and find out what they're thinking about. And they can actually connect, as you're building your free town, you have a pork buddy who can help you and who knows other people who can help you. And I actually would prefer if you could find people from Montana. I don't know, if you guys actually go, and we could talk about what a go signal would look like. But if you guys actually go, I would be, I mean, I don't know that we have people from Montana. I would be surprised that we don't. I just don't know any of them off the top of my head. But I would love for you to have. I would love to have a connection here that is that close.
Before we wrap up, I have another couple questions about about the pork vacation, and that's from what I've heard. Because I mean, I don't want to say passively. Over time, I've heard other free staters talk on this stuff, you know, Carla and so forth on Tom Woods or whatever. And so we show up to the Independence Inn or another kind of hotbed of free staters. So from what I understand, most or several nights a week, there are like informal gatherings that you wouldn't otherwise know about unless you were, you know, hooked in with one of these people.
Yeah, well, there's public. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can figure out how to do this. Come on, baby. There we go. Let's see now. fsp.org/calendar. I think that will get me there. Maybe community. Yeah, that's it. So here is the Liberty calendar. So today there were two things. There was a pizza party at the Shell, which is actually my clubhouse, and that's where they were doing the silver exchange. But it was a pizza party, and I didn't go there because I was going to talk to you guys, so I was going to actually spend time. And then the Porcupine Report. Oh, that's tonight. That's Eric Brakey talking. That's actually a Zoom thing. But those are the two events that are happening there on a Wednesday night. So, for example, if you were here, I would highly recommend that you know, if you're at the Independence Inn, you hop in your car and you head northeast to the Shell, and that's actually within the 30-minute window. So it takes you less than 30 minutes to get there. So you go there and you talk to the people and you eat the pizza. Maybe you buy some silver and you talk to people about what they're doing and make connections. Okay. And then the next day, okay, we got a calling and texting party, and that's also pizza. So you could get some more pizza if you want. But that's actually people getting together and calling people from in other states and other countries about, you know, hey, you signed up to move to New Hampshire. We're actually here in New Hampshire. We're waiting for you. So that's what a calling party is. Kind of reminding people, you signed up, come on. Then we're having a Liberty meetup in Rochester. That's about 20 minutes away from me. So you could go there, have dinner with those people. As a matter of fact, after that, there's a party after that. That's not on the schedule, but if you show up there, you would then be invited to the party afterwards. Or you could go to Upper Valley, which is on the other side of the state, and they are having a party. They go out and now that's a lot of the farmers, the people who are one of our most successful farms are out there. They also do a lot of things in schooling, so that would be a great place for you to go. Now, from the Independence Inn, that would be about an hour drive, but it would be in the opposite direction. And then let's see, storage inventory. Oh, I think this is for Porcfest. So they're actually starting. They're inviting people to come and help them with a kava workshop and live music. Where is this? Oh yeah, and this is back over in the Upper Valley. So they're having a live music and kava. I guess there's some sort of kava. I don't do kava things, but there's some people who do kava things and stuff. But then you can see what happens on the weekend: board games, crypto meetup. We have the longest running crypto meetup in the world. But this is not that. This is just one. This is a crypto meetup in my neck of the woods. The lakes region has their porcupine meetup. Their meetups they have much less frequent meetups. So this is their once a month dinner meetup at El Tequila, but it's a lunch. So you can go there for lunch and then you go somewhere else for dinner, community circle. Anyway, so you can see there's a lot of things happening. So you come here, and what I would actually suggest is that you take advantage of the social networks, both Twitter and Facebook. If you're on Facebook, the Porcupine Free State Project group is really a really good place to meet people. And what you do is you say, hey, I'm going to be in New Hampshire on these days. Who can meet up? especially if you have like something, I'm really into crypto. I really want to learn more about gold backs. I want to go on a shoot. You can do all these different things and people go, oh, hey, we're going to be doing this. And then you can actually have one-on-one connections. These are just the things that are open to the general public and you can just drop in on them. So that's what I'm talking about. So this is June. And really June, we kind of shut down the week before during Porcfest and the week after. I mean, there's still a lot of events happening, but it's not really all that heavily attended because people are just gearing up so much for Porcfest. It's a pretty big thing in these parts. And I don't know if things are being scheduled yet out to July.
Well, Dennis, I know you've definitely piqued a lot of interest, and we really appreciate you coming in and talking. I think a couple of us have kind of an out right now as far as time, but I certainly am a hell of a lot more likely to come out and visit New Hampshire at this point. So I really appreciate that.
Well, I hope you do. Give me a call. If you actually do get a group together, you can always Zoom me in. I'd be more than happy to help with planning, talking about recruitment and messaging, helping with town selection and talking about criteria. I highly recommend that you follow me on Twitter. I write primarily about libertarian ethics and the Free State Project. So that's what I primarily write about.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I mean, really, thank you. This has been great. And I think this is going to dovetail nicely with, we've been working on the, trying to implement more of Michael Height's project decentralization, which is very similar to what you're talking about. So, I mean,
I actually agree with that. I think that, I mean, the trouble with project decentralization is that it's ignoring the problem that you don't have enough libertarians.
Right.
So
and that's why I think they're so nicely
Exactly. And what I would like to see is actually 49 states, each with a town that's right sized, that is a libertarian sanctuary, a libertarian homeland in that state. And then one state that's actually the full state is libertarian. Now I think that we're actually moving in a direction that's sustainable and real. We're not going to take over the US, but we can take over one town, and we can probably take over one small state.
Right. Great.
The thing I always say is when I talk to people, they agree with the libertarian principle. They just don't want to be libertarians. They say, yeah, I agree with wanting to be left alone. I agree that the government's too big, but I'm still a Democrat or I'm still a Republican.
Usually they agree until you go against their tribal interest.
I know.
And they go, whoa. I'm in favor of all those libertarian things except the ones that actually cause me not to enslave other people. Those are the ones I'm against.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're a rare breed. We're a rare breed.
And then we end up with a Joe Biden or a Donald.
Oh yeah, or worse. I mean, and this is where you could actually have your own, your own group. So I'm going to be talking to Colorado, New Jersey, who else? Minnesota, California. I have hopes that somebody's going to bite, and then we'll see how they do. Because this is
good luck.
It's not a trivial exercise. It's not a trivial exercise, but I think the returns, it's so much better than the returns of close to zero. This will actually buy you stuff. You will actually get freedom.
Keep beating your head against the wall, Dennis.
I got 43 years of beating my head against the wall. I don't have many years left. The part that drives me crazy though is the people, people are saying, I've done this amount of time and it's good enough for me. I go, but what about all these people who see this beauty of how we could be treating each other in this society where we just respect each other, and they see it and they really want it. And then we dash their hopes, right? We have them smack into the wall, and they're just not as mule-headed as the rest of us. And they go, I give up.
Yeah.
That saddens me.
Oh,
I think we need sanctuaries for them.
Yeah.
I think we need places where they can actually start experiencing freedom and start building it for real.
Well, just over that hill there, you're behind my, there's a little town of, that's my driveway behind me there. And just over that hill is a nice little town of about 625 people that I don't think would probably, wouldn't buy the libertarian. They're hardcore farmers, but that's where I live. Is out in about 625 people. Nice little, small little. They're all wonderful people, but they're very, very, very right wing. Not quite ready for being free state. Unless you talk to them, they all say the same thing. Yeah, get government out of my life, but let me vote Republican. Oh well.
Get government out of my life, but we're going to go and send all of our money to Ukraine.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh God.
Well, gentlemen, I'm out of time. I have to go. I don't want to cut you guys short, but
Melissa, thank you so much for inviting me. It was such a pleasure. I have to say, I loved Montana when they came to Porcfest. They were actually some of my favorites. I don't get, when I'm running Porcfest, I don't actually get to enjoy much, but I did get to enjoy those guys a bit. And you know that Montana made it big into our docuseries. Did you see our docuseries?
no, did not see
Yes.
it.
So there's a docuseries on, I think it's NBC, called I'll leave you a link to it. But yeah, Roger's in it. What's her name?
Katira's
in it.
Katira's in it. Oh, you've seen it? Who saw that?
Yeah.
Liam?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, it's a great documentary. I was sure that they were going to just destroy us, which all these press do, and we actually don't care. In New Hampshire, that's good for us. We don't care because remember, we want to signal bad people not to come. Right? We want to signal bad people don't come, and we want to signal good people things are happening here that you might want to be paying attention to. So when they give us bad press, we don't really care about that. But they gave us like a fair shake on this. And I was going, damn. And what happened was they actually stayed with us for almost a year. So it's a little docuseries. It's well worth watching them.
Okay, guys,
thanks very much, Dennis. Melissa, thanks.
Hi, Melissa.
Thanks for putting this together.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Dennis Pratt from the Free State Project of New Hampshire. Thank you again for your time.